Hey, it's Denise. It's been a while since I've done a video. I was going to say how many months, but it's October 1st, so we're not like evenly at a month. I had my surgery on May 21st. So four months was about a week ago. I'm, just to review stats, at my very heaviest, twice in my life, I weighed 255. At the time, at the beginning of this year, when I made the decision that it was time to stop the yo-yo dieting and do something permanent, I was at about 240. The first time I went to my surgeon's office, on their scale, I was 238, so that's what they consider my official starting weight. In the couple months, and it was only about 2.5 months, I guess because it was towards the end of February I met them. And I couldn't start on the diet right away because there was question of if my BMI was high enough for the insurance, if I lost any more weight, because I had lost a few pounds and had started a diet. Of course, life's 10,000th diet at least. So I was starting to lose, and like when you're in that losing mood, you can stick to it for a while. But then they were like, hold right on, because you're at the borderline of whether your BMI will be covered if you lose any more weight. So I kind of was in a holding pattern for the first month or so. But then for the last, I want to say, in the last 6 to 8 weeks before surgery, I lost I lost over 20 pounds, close to 25 pounds. The day of surgery, I was 212 pounds on the scale at the hospital. That was after following the high protein, minimal carb diet that my surgeon recommends. I did not have to do, like some people have to do, like a week or two of just protein shakes. I didn't have to do that, but I did have to make sure I had the whole carb addiction thing broken long before the surgery. And I have to say, now knowing, I was someone who I worked as a nurse in an addiction treatment setting for 10 years. I absolutely understand the process of addiction. But of course, for someone who's an addict and their drug of choice is heroin or cocaine, you can just say, well, don't have any, and that will increase your likelihood of not continuing to use. Obviously support groups, other things. But the number one rule generally for success is absolutely avoiding, because once you have it, it's going to trigger intense cravings to have more, right? And then we all think, well, you have to have food. Obviously, you can't avoid 100%. So how are you supposed to have that same sort of mindset of treating an addiction when it's something that you can't say, I'm never eating again, obviously. I never, and I'm not claiming to be an expert on them, I never went to a meeting of Overeaters Anonymous. I just couldn't seem to get myself to, over the years, I guess, think of obesity and food addiction in the same way that I had no problem looking at alcohol and other drugs as addictive, and how like the same approach would work. So I really, I admit I am not a knowledgeable person really when it comes to Overeaters Anonymous. I read about some of their, their principles, but I never went to those. But as far as taking the carbs out of my diet on a serious level, that made a believer out of me, as far as it, people saying, well, you're a carbohydrate addict, that's why you overeat. That's why your body doesn't say you're not really hungry. And once I was following their diet in terms of not the portions yet of someone who's had surgery, but the foods that I would be eating, and more importantly, avoiding the foods that I would not be eating. After about 2 or 3 weeks of not eating anything, bread-based, wheat-based, nothing with all the white foods, as a lot of people say, the bread, the rice, the pasta, regular cereal, not the only stuff I've had is the stuff you buy, specifically for bariatric folks. So it's like little crunchy protein fake Cheerios. But really, after a couple weeks of not eating, and all of my favorite foods are carbs, all of them. If I just have survived on an island with only a few dishes available to choose from, they pretty much all would have been like carb and dairy based. Macaroni and cheese, bagels, pizza, those kind of things were what, for my last supper, I was never a big meat eater. In fact, I was a vegetarian for nearly a decade when I was younger. And so to me, meat and therefore the concentrated proteins that I'm supposed to be eating now were never really the part of my diet that I focused on. So when making the conscious effort to get rid of and, replace everything I was used to, not that all of my eating habits were terrible. I love dairy anything, so I don't care if it's low fat. I've always been a yogurt person, so just, switching brands so that I was getting the higher protein, lower carbs was not a big transition to make at all. That was something that yogurt's something I always eat, something my son eats. We always have that in the house. He didn't care about switching up brands either. For me, pre-op, I was able to switch over to the high protein, practically zero carb, it might even be zero net carb, bagels, the ones that you can get through the Bariatric Pal store. Pre-op, I was able to eat them, and I love them. Although, I'm going to tell you that you want to take some simethicone, some Gas-X, if you're going to eat, because there's like 14 grams of fiber in each one, I think. Post-op, as far out as I am now, they still don't agree with me, not even half of one. It just sits in my stomach like a brick, which makes me sad because I enjoyed them as something that took the place of bread preoperatively, and it totally helped me cut that whole carb craving, because eating one of those, which was about 15 grams of protein and 15 grams of fiber, no net carbs, that's, it's filling, totally meets, the dietary restrictions, requirements. It was helping me get my protein. It wasn't adding any carbs. So I was really hoping to incorporate that into my diet ongoing post-operatively. I mean, obviously not immediately, but like I said, we're after 4 months, and I've had some complications. I'm not going to lie. This has not been easy. There have been times when I really question if I made the right decision. Not that I'm not happy with losing, I've lost about 70 pounds now. I'm very happy with the weight loss, but trying to keep myself hydrated has proven to be a struggle. I've lost count of how many times I've been in for IV fluids because the dehydration just reached a point where I couldn't really stand up without feeling like I was going to pass out, and it's a struggle. I was having real issues with nausea and trying to, excuse me, I'm like trying to clear something here. I was having a lot of issues with nausea and trying to make myself drink when I was having no sense of thirst. Each drink was like, if you push it, you're going to throw up. That's how I felt. The same as when you get that stop signal, you know, when you've taken your third bite of whatever, and it's like, okay, not only am I not hungry, I might have even gone a bite or two past it, and now you're getting like that hard, you need to stop. Well, I'm getting that from fluids as well. And this, you know, it stinks because you feel weak and you feel lightheaded, and this like is how every day is now. I'm going to discuss something that some people are going to find controversial, and I know when you put it out there, there are going to be people who are going to judge, but I also think I wish that maybe someone had mentioned it to me as an option. Maybe I wouldn't have stayed sick so long. A couple friends had suggested medical marijuana. Now, if you heard me talk before, I was a nurse on a detox for 10 years. I worked in behavioral health for most of my 26-year nursing career before a spinal cord injury made me retire in my 40s. I was never drinker, smoker, recreational drug user. Just never my thing. Not when I was young, not as an adult. Not my thing. My brother always said I was too much of a control freak to smoke pot or do anything else because the fact of the matter is, I like being in charge of my faculties. And I've always been that way. But the fact that since spinal cord injury, I am disabled. I'm considered disabled. My balance, I walk like someone who's had a few cocktails, even though I'm sober. My legs are weak, my arms are weak. I have myopathy that affects everywhere. The injury was relatively high up in my spinal cord. I'm actually very lucky to be alive, and I'd never lose sight of that. If it had gone in much deeper, I would not be here, probably. Or I would be paralyzed from the neck down. It was a very close call, and I was very fortunate that it was fixed. Not that they can fix the damage, but that they were able to remove the sharp, pointy growth that had stabbed from my own vertebrae, grown into my spinal cord. But they surgically took out the dangerous parts, rebuild it. Not going to go into, if you want to look at how spinal fusion and discectomy is done, you can always look up 1,000 videos on that. But that doesn't repair the damage. I mean, I went into surgery knowing that it wasn't going to fix anything. It was just going to stop further damage. So the chronic pain in my limbs, the weakness, the dizziness. Well, it's not a dizziness in my head. It's just a loss of balance. That it's not like I feel dizzy. I just will suddenly find myself. It would be like if you've ever walked on a boat during rough water. You just kind of feel like the floor shifted under you, and suddenly you're leaning kind of too much one way or the other. That's how I live. That's how I have lived since 2012 when the spinal cord damage occurred. For me, I was hoping with the weight loss to maybe improve my endurance as far as walking, which I thought, hey, you're carrying around all this extra weight. It's got to be easier to move around once you get rid of it. It's easier to move around in that, yeah, I can squeeze through places I couldn't before. But as far as my muscles being stronger, if anything, I'm finding the opposite. I think that because there is signal disruption from my neck down, all the muscles below my neck, so essentially my entire body, don't get the full signal. So with that, I have myopathy and neuropathy. As I've lost the fat and I can see my thighs, like, the actual muscles, not hidden under a lot of fat for the first time in years, I am appalled by how much muscle loss there has been. I wasn't seeing it because of the extra weight, but there's been a lot of muscle loss because those muscles don't get a signal anymore like they used to. I think I might have actually been giving myself the existing muscles that do still work, may have been giving them a workout by carrying the extra weight around. And now I'm letting them get weaker because they don't have that constant extra workout that they have to do all the time. Which is so backwards of how we think about getting in shape. But you have to remember, when your muscles I can't voluntarily tell them, to contract, or, I don't know what percentage of the muscle fibers in a particular group don't get the signal to work, but they've certainly atrophied quite a bit over the years. And, I really expected to feel like I could walk longer distances, and that's not true. In fact, the opposite is true. I finally listened to friends who had suggested that I try medical marijuana. Now, like I said, never drinker, smoker, drug user, and I have asthma. So, I certainly wasn't going to smoke marijuana. I'm also a law-abiding person. One speeding ticket is like the extent of my bad behavior. And I'm 51 and I've gotten one speeding ticket. And I've been driving since I'm 16. So I'm like as straight arrow as they come as far as not breaking the law. I don't do, bad, illegal things. And I worked in the addiction field for so long that, to me, the thought of trying medical marijuana, I dwelled on it for months and months while I felt sick, even before the surgery for, the chronic refractory migraines that are part of every day. They create nausea also. The medicine I have to take for them can make me more nauseous. You can see and I've gotten gastritis twice since the surgery and had to treat that. So my post-op stomach is even more sensitive, not just to portion size and did you chew it 100 times and, all the stuff that you would expect, all the stuff that, we all get educated on before the surgery. At least hopefully everyone gets educated on it. But I'm having these extra problems. So I finally was like, you know what? I thought you had to jump through a ton of hoops. I looked online initially. Someone had given me a website to check out. And it just looked so shady, the way that you go about applying for a medical marijuana card. It looked to me more like I was doing some semi-legal, drug deal. I've never had a doctor's office or consultation or appointment or anything where it's like, oh, take a picture of yourself holding your driver's license and text it to the office manager. Are you serious? You conduct your business by me texting your office manager? And then I pay you a couple $100 and you don't accept insurance if this is a legitimate medical thing, why don't you accept insurance? And why am I texting something from my phone? It just, oh, and then if you don't get approved, we'll refund your money. Like, this to me just sounded like this is how New York State wants people to be evaluated to get a medical marijuana card. No wonder people just see abuse of it, and people who basically already used, recreational marijuana and are now just like, hey, I can get it legal now, so I can't get in trouble for having it. Like, because I have to tell you, like, looking at that process, I ended up not doing it that way. To me, it just felt really, like, shady. It did not feel like a medical evaluation. It didn't. So I didn't do that. I didn't follow, I did not end up paying them or asking them to submit me for the card. I was still at a little bit of a loss of where I was going to find an actual provider. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to have to jump through all kinds of hoops, I'm going to do what some of my friends have suggested. Both, like I said, one friend who themselves uses it, and another who, a friend of hers, has used it. Both of them successfully. And they were both like, Denise, we know this goes against your nature, but why don't you try it? And that way you can decide if it's working for you. Then you go see a doctor and get the card and continue on it. If you try it for a short time, and again, we're talking the medical grade, the oil that they give at an actual dispensary for people who are getting medical marijuana. I'm not talking about going and buying marijuana. Try it and see if it helps. And that's what I did for about a week before my most recent appointment with my nurse practitioner at my surgeon's office. And I talked to her about it because I believe that if you're not going to be honest with your doctor, they can't do their best job to help you. So, she knows I've been struggling. She's been the one most of the time that ends up, talking to me when I end up going for the fluids. So I told her, I said, and you know what? I said, honestly, the nausea is almost non-existent. I can sit here and kind of make myself drink even when I don't want to. I can't completely push it, but I'm not getting that, every sip is like, ugh, I don't want to do this, like, dread when I look at a water bottle. The nausea's gone. The headaches are a lot better. I'm taking, I would say, less than half of the amount of pain medication, specifically for migraines, that I had been taking. Less than half. Way less, probably. It almost just went from needing to take it the full amount of times a day I was allowed to there are days I don't take it at all. Like a week went by that I didn't take it, which is unheard of for the last few years. And I'm sleeping better. I do have a sleep disorder, periodic limb movements of sleep. It interferes with getting enough REM sleep. I have restless leg syndrome, which interferes with being able to fall asleep. So they, I already have a problem sleeping, and it was helping with that too. And my brother was right. I obviously am a control freak. I don't like I've been very, very careful on adjusting the dose, sort of, with the guidance of people who've used this before. And I don't like that feeling of even the slightest bit too much, because I'm a control freak apparently. And it was funny because my nurse practitioner agreed. She's like, yep, you're like me. You don't like feeling like you don't have 100% control of your head at any given point. I said, yeah. I said, part of me is like, no, this is an unacceptable trade-off. I can't, voluntarily have periods of time where I'm not focused, I'm not sharp, I'm not, feeling like 100% attentive. And then I was like, Denise, you're getting more fluids down than you have been. You're taking way less pain medication. And I don't know if I've mentioned this in recent videos, but my liver enzymes, I had an episode of gastritis about a month before my surgery. So in April, about a month before my surgery, I just spent a night or two in the hospital for an episode of gastritis, and my liver enzymes were high when I was in the hospital. It's been months, and the last time they checked them, when they did my 3-month blood work, they were still, they were a little better, but they weren't back to normal. So, any less medication that my liver has to process, I'm sure it's appreciating. So being able to take less of the pain meds that contain acetaminophen, which is, everyone knows Tylenol is rough on your liver, and it's an ingredient in so many other medications. It can become difficult to find a pain medicine that doesn't have that in it when you're taking stronger, prescription level meds. I'm not allowed to take NSAIDs, as most of us who've had this surgery shouldn't. So, you've knocked out that whole category of meds, especially after an episode of gastritis, and if there's any chance that it was contributing to the liver enzymes. So I really had to reevaluate. Maybe, I'm not working. I'm like I said, disabled right now. I'm not working. I don't have to worry about making a medication error. I'm not still working as a nurse. And if I'm going to get all the benefit that it gives, and the trade-off is, okay, maybe I won't win Jeopardy this week if I were to go on, I can deal with that. And I think I've decided that that's what I'm going to do, because it is such a relief to not be nauseous all the time. I really had been thinking that I made a terrible mistake having the surgery. And I was like, like I said, thrilled with the weight loss, but not thrilled with life. And not the diet. I think people think that sticking to the diet or worrying about food or that would be the hard part. For me, that's not been the hard part at all. Like I told you, I'm a believer now as far as the carb addict aspect. If you avoid them, the concentrated ones, and you keep your protein levels, intake up, the little bit of carbs that you get with it is fine, as long as you're not sitting there chowing down on straight out carbs. So, yeah, the diet isn't what's hard for me. The watching other people eat, isn't what's hard for me. It's the feeling weak and dizzy and nauseous and not being able to stay hydrated and my blood pressure being lower than it should, and, all the stuff that was coming along with me not being able to stay hydrated, essentially. And if medical marijuana is going to take away all of those things that made the surgery feel like a mistake that I really was kind of starting to dread living with for the rest of my life. It was like, people who hadn't seen me in a while would be like, "Oh, Denise, you look great." And I would, instead of like originally, that was like a self-esteem booster, like, yay, people notice it's, the hard work that you put into it. It's nice to have someone say they can see that you lost weight. But I started feeling like I look great. I feel like absolute crap. Like I felt like saying that. Of course, I didn't, except, like if I was talking to talking to someone about the problem. But I mean, like, I just felt like, wow, this is so shallow. Everyone just sees that that the outside looks better, and they're like, oh, wow, you must be doing awesome. No one realizes that on the inside I feel weak and sick and terrible. And, that's my new everyday. That's the rest of my life. While I get complimented on the superficial exterior change. And I was kind of bummed about that. So again, this is helping to get rid of most of the problems. And I'm hoping it's going to make it easier. I'm still not up where I should be on the fluids, but I'm doing better. And when I told my nurse practitioner, what had finally I had started, like I said, like a week before I saw her. And when I told her that, the last few days had been the first nausea-free days in months, she was totally supportive. Not only was she like, she's like, she was like, not only is it she's like, obviously it's illegal. I can't say yes, so it's great that you tried it illegally. She's like, but honestly, there's a reason they've made it legal, and it's because it helps a lot of people. Us control freaks have to find, there are very different types of marijuana products out there to those like me who were never interested in it for recreational purposes, and are kind of naive and just not very informed as to what's out there. I had to just start doing some quick learning. There are definitely things that are geared more towards people who want to get high. They're geared towards having much more mental effect than body effect. And obviously for someone like me, that's the nightmare side of it. I do not want to ever have to experience that. So, finding out exactly what it was that is the right type, if you will, for me, really was just pushing that I want the least psychoactive effect and the most in terms of physical management, chronic pain, nausea, the headaches. And so my nurse practitioner gave me the name and number of a doctor, a real live doctor with an office, and I called and made an appointment. So when my surgeon's office it's almost a 4-hour trip to get there, and so it's like an 8-hour day. It's once a month that I go. So I'm going again at the end of October. I have an appointment towards the end of the month. And I called the doctor who she gave me and made an appointment. And sure enough, because I was calling a month ahead, they were able to put me in with that doctor 2 hours after my appointment with Dr. Fuller. And this way, I'm actually going to see a real doctor in a real doctor's office, who's with a group of respected doctors who I know from the hospital. And it doesn't feel like a drug dealer transaction. It doesn't feel shady and illegal or any of the other things that the other way of doing it was feeling to me. Um, so that's where I'm at. And my hair has definitely started doing the thinning thing. They said between months 4 and 5, people start to lose their hair. I've had most of my hair cut kind of short. I just left a little bit of kind of fringe around my face because I was like, I don't want it coming out in clumps. When I'm brushing it, you can definitely tell it's coming out. I got a couple just cheap, not spending a lot of money, just cheap wigs to throw on if it gets thin enough that I feel really self-conscious. I mean, I'm starting to feel a little self-conscious. I mean, like you can see at the part, like you can really see through the part. It's getting thin. I'm thinking about getting this part cut off so that, because it's way easier to put a wig on if you don't have to hide long purple. Yes, my hair is purple. In this light, it's hard to tell. But it's much easier to put a wig on that's blonde or normal light brown sort of color if you're not worried about purple showing through. So I was thinking, the time might be here to pretty much get like not buzzed. That makes it look like I'm thinking about cutting all my hair off. But to get like maybe like a short pixie cut. And that way when I want to wear a wig, it's easier to throw one on quickly. So that's something I'm considering doing. The other thing, I figure back in 2006, my mom went through chemo. She beat lymphoma. She went through chemo and obviously lost her hair. And she went to, at the hospital she's at, they have a really great program. They have like a beauty salon for women who are losing their hair through chemo. And they helped her get her, her insurance end up covering an expensive human hair wig that would, a high quality wig that would look like real hair. Well, it would be real hair, but just not her hair, you know what I mean? She wore it to one dinner that her and my father and I were going to, and then she told me that wig is too damn hot, makes my head sweat, it's itchy, and she bought herself a pink baseball cap. And my mom went through chemo and the afterwards of her hair growing back with a baseball cap on. And the way she felt about it was, people who don't know me, if they want to stare, either they're, rude, or they're not picking up on the fact that, there was some kind of health issue going on here. She's like, and the people who do know me I know why I lost my hair. She's like, so why am I making myself uncomfortable? I'm going to wear this baseball hat. It's not hot. When I go out, that's what I'm putting on. If anybody wants to stare at the bald lady in the baseball hat, they can. And that's how she handled it. And I thought, you know what? I got my pink carnival hat that's always hanging on the corner of my bed here. And I stuck the little 50 star that they gave me at the office when I crossed the 50 pounds lost mark. And I stuck that on here, and I thought, you know what? If my hair starts getting too thin and I don't feel like dealing with the wigs, it'll be pink hat time for me too. But again, the people who know me know why my hair is, not that I had super thick hair to begin with. I also totally, this purple wig, you're not getting a good look, because this is very purple. I hope that's coming across. My shirt is blue, but this is like much purpler. This is closer. This is what I wore for a couple days before I made the commitment to actually dye my own hair purple ages ago. But it's like, it's like a big cosplay, very long. I have it ponytailed. I did wear it one evening when we were going out to do something. They were having a fundraiser at my son's school. They were having a spaghetti dinner. And so, yeah, I just threw on, and I looked like someone trying to be a Disney princess, I think. I don't know if any of them have purple hair this long, and I'm sure there are cosplay people who are screaming, "Oh my God, Denise, no, that wig looks like some character I've never heard of." But I was like, you know what? I've got all this purple hair hanging in front of me, and I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to pretend that it's real. I'm not trying to make anybody think overnight I magically grew 3 feet of purple hair. Yeah, you can't really do that on camera, one-handed. Well, not even one-handed, I should say, without flipping over. I was trying to just give you the overall effect, but can't really do that without putting it on properly. I'm not putting it on properly. You get the overall effect. Me sitting here with a ton of purple hair and the big bushy ponytail that I had hanging down my back when we went out. Yeah, just having the entire purple monster free and it had gotten a little frizzy was, that was a bit over the top even for someone who's willing to wear this. So that's why I went with the ponytail. But, I had just hairsprayed my hair straight to my head, like, complete helmet head of hairspray. But if any showed, it didn't really matter because it's only a slightly different shade of purple. But if I'm going to try to get by with anything that looks like, it could potentially have grown out of someone's head, it would not be that. It would be one of the 2 or 3 I have that are, they're, like I said, not high quality, not expensive, but they're not bright purple and they don't look like they're for Halloween. So has my opinion changed on if it was a mistake to have the surgery? I guess time will tell. I'm back to being open-minded that it wasn't a mistake. If you're still hanging in here listening to this, maybe you're struggling either with making the decision to have it, or like me, you're struggling after it. But I guess if I can tell you anything, it's if you hit a rough spot and you're not feeling well, don't just give up, don't just accept it. Let your surgeon or whoever the practitioner is that you follow up with at your surgeon's office, let them know things are not going well. I would certainly never suggest to anybody else that they break the law, or if you have an addiction problem, obviously you're not going to want to try an potentially addictive substance as a treatment adjunct. And 100% better would be to talk to your doctor about it first, but of course they can't advise you to do it either if it's illegal where you live. But I can only tell you that for me, it seems to be making the difference of feeling like I had a very long time to live, I hope, with what I was afraid was a mistake. And now I'm thinking if it's correctable with just a small dose of something that has one side effect I don't love, but does a whole lot of other things that make me feel better, then it wasn't a mistake. Then it was worth being off the blood pressure medicine. And I was on blood pressure medicine for high blood. Well, this is confusing. I was on a medicine that lowers your blood pressure. I was on it primarily because it also slows your heart rate. My blood pressure got too low because of the dehydration, so I had to stop it. I had to stop taking the medication. The loss of weight, though, has really helped with the underlying high heart rate. Now, when they check me and my pulse is in the 70s, It used to be if someone wrote down that my pulse was in the 70s, it meant that they didn't really check. Because I don't think my pulse has been in the 70s, like, since the 1970s, you know? My resting heart rate for the last 10 years, I don't think has been, lower than the 80s. And recently, the reason I was on medication was the asthma medications that I have to take increase my heart rate. And so I was, one medication making you need another one. You know how you end up with the whole pile of them that way. For that, I am glad I'm off that. And the heart rate went down also, which I'm sure the weight loss contributed to the heart rate going down. So it worked out that I could come off it. So I'm not taking anything for heart or blood pressure anymore. I'm not having to use CPAP for sleep apnea anymore. I am within a few pounds of, when you look at the BMI chart, I had been well into the obese category, and I'm not only not obese anymore, I'm just barely in the overweight. So Dr. Fuller said she would guess that probably I'm within about 10 pounds of my goal. She doesn't think I have much more to go because I didn't set a number. People ask, what's your goal weight? And I said, I'll know it when I get there. My goal is to feel comfortable in my body again, which I feel like since I gained all the weight for the years I was walking around, it was like, this doesn't feel like me, But now I feel like me again. I mean, obviously, I don't feel like me before the spinal cord injury. That is never going to happen. That is something I've had to learn to deal with some limitations on. But my attitude has gotten better on that stuff in terms of, taking a vacation, even though it was scary to think about traveling when I know I can't. I'm not as independent. I'm not, I used to think of myself as the scariest thing out there. Really. And a lot of people might laugh because I'm a peaceful, not aggressive, very chill kind of person most of the time. But working in mental health for 26 years and being a natural outdoors person, either you are timid and fearful or you just, quote Mr. T, pity the fool that starts with you. And I was always strong and physically, and emotionally strong. And I was never really intimidated or afraid or, I would never worry certainly about going somewhere by myself, safety-wise. And after the spinal cord injury, I can't say that anymore. My balance is awkward. And, they say when muggers or whoever's are looking for a target, someone who either could be mistaken for intoxicated or they recognize it as a disability, you make yourself look like an easy target. Add to that I'm nowhere near as strong as I used to be. So it was with some anxiety that I made vacation plans last year. Our trip ended up, it was a nice trip, but I ended up being stuck in a wheelchair because I couldn't. Who was I kidding? I could not walk the distances that you need to walk when you're on a cruise ship. So I do own my own mobility scooter now. That you can take apart into like 4 parts, and it goes into the trunk of the car. So for my next trip, which isn't for over a year, but I have that to take with me so that I can go through the airports and the cruise ship and places where you have to go long distances and stand long times in line. I will be able to do that with a greater degree of independence. It's just a matter of notifying the airlines and the cruise lines and wherever else, who needs to know that you are traveling that way, so that, like, when you're getting transport from, say, the airport to the seaport for a cruise. For my next trip, they'll need to know that I will be arriving in my own scooter, and that they need to send a shuttle bus that has a lift, for like a wheelchair lift. So I am staying positive in terms of I want to get as much of my life back as I can, which was also part of the whole weight loss thing. It'd be easier to take care of myself, to move around, I thought my endurance would be better. Turned out that part wasn't true. But at least if I have to be moving around in a scooter or getting up and squeezing through places, that is easier. And I know people, like I said at the beginning, I know people are going to have mixed feelings about the use of medical marijuana. It is legal, and medical marijuana is legal in my state. So, like I said, I have this appointment with the doctor for when I have my next doctor's visit to be evaluated, and hopefully then I'll be able to know that the weight loss surgery was not a mistake for me. From what I've seen online and at the doctor's office, most people feel like it was a great thing that they did for themselves. And initially I felt like it was a great thing I did for myself. And it wasn't until the whole I can't stay hydrated problem got bad after a few, I don't know, I want to say maybe after a month. I just started getting more nauseous and less able to drink a month after the surgery. And because the healing itself afterwards was fine. I had a very smooth recovery period right after surgery, no problems. So initially I was thrilled with, like most people are. These last couple months of nausea and dizziness and dehydration really did make me change my mind in terms of thinking it was a good decision. But now I feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that there's a way to turn this around from being a bad situation back to it being a good situation. And I guess that's really what I wanted to share about, is that I had to take a path that was not the most comfortable path for me because of my own beliefs. This was not the most easy, natural decision for me to try this to help. But I'm very glad that I listened to my friends who suggested it, because believe me, they had to suggest it more than once before I even started seriously considering it. And they were right. I'm starting to feel better. And if this can make sleeved life the way it's supposed to be, get your protein in, drink your water, and enjoy life, which is what I want. Then I'll be thrilled again. I'm sure I'll be very happy with the fact that I did it. The weight loss, like I said, has already had some benefits, and I feel like as close to my old self as I'm going to feel. Nothing can be done about spinal cord damage. But it's not an easy thing to talk about. Like I said, I'm not someone to break the law. I'm not someone who uses recreational drugs. Never did. Not in high school, not in college. Not a drinker. So for me, this was not like a natural, oh yeah, let me try medical marijuana. Like, that was not the first thing that came to my mind when I wasn't getting better and couldn't stay hydrated or eat. But I am glad that I sort of took a leap of faith, that the advice my friends were giving me was good advice. These were people I trusted, and I knew that their heart was in the right place. They were not people who would just lightly give advice that they didn't think would really be helpful. Anyway, I've talked for twice as long as I thought I would to kind of bring everything in that I guess in my head is related to the decision to do this, to use medical marijuana in order to make life after my sleeve surgery the life I expected it to be. And I hope it helps someone hearing me think it out loud, or maybe answer something that you're doubting or thinking, or if you have questions, talk to your doctor. If you have other stomach issues that might then be flared up by your smaller stomach, talk to your doctor before your surgery about that. And if it's afterwards and you're struggling, like I said, don't just accept it. Talk to your doctor and keep talking to them. And if you need to, talk to a different doctor and keep trying to get someone who can help you get back on track to feeling better. Because you did this for yourself to feel better. I know I did it to feel better. And if you're not feeling better, you need to not give up, and you need to keep working towards what will help you. Even if it's maybe outside of your normal comfort zone, which is where I had to step. Anyway, I hope everyone else is watching this. If you've had your surgery, I hope yours went well and you're losing and feeling good. Have a great day. And thank you for listening to me ramble for so long.